Shadow of Death. Scott and Lee have been stranded on an island somewhere within the Bermuda Triangle for a long time now. I don't know how they're surviving. And a city has arisen out of the ocean before them. Scott has his eyes blindfolded because his ruby quartz glasses flew into the ocean when their ship capsized, and Lee is describing the city to him. It's old and it's alien. Lee has seen Scott's optic blast and she hasn't asked him about it yet, which is stressing Scott out, but all they have right now is each other and she's not about to push him away. She kisses him and he panics. Lee knows he's hesitating because he isn't over Jean's death. He needs more time. But she is at her wit's end. And she's like, I don't need companionship from you. I'm just scared and cold and hungry and need some compassion. And she storms off, leaving him blind and alone. He stumbles around before deciding that he needs to see, even if it causes some destruction. So he takes his blindfold off. Immediately he regrets it and puts the blindfold back on, and Lee obviously heard the blast, so she comes back, and Scott is grateful to have her. Back in Westchester, Logan is hunting Kurt, who hides in the shadows of the trees behind the mansion. Kurt watches as he thinks he's fooled Logan by dragging his scent through the trees and then doubling back by teleporting. He watches Logan search for him until suddenly Logan literally vanishes. Kurt is like, where'd he go? I didn't take my eyes off him. He teleports down to check. That was a mistake. Logan pounces and stuns Kurt. He says, you lose. Kurt is like, how did you vanish like that? And Logan says, it's an old ninja trick I learned in Japan. They're having fun with the improvised training sessions as friends. Inside the mansion, Warren is furious about having to work on a team with Logan. Storm listens, and as he's popping off, his mood is affecting her mood, and her mood is affecting the weather outside, which she notices and rectifies as soon as she does. Warren is pissed about how Logan tore that Storm imposter to shreds without ensuring that it wasn't actually Aurora before attacking. He's a lunatic and a monster, he says. I've tried to work with him, but I don't want to be on a team that he's a part of. Xavier can see where he's coming from, but Storm is leader of the X-Men, and she sees Logan's potential for good. And if she's not offended by what he did to the Storm imposter, I don't know why he is. In the hangar complex, Sean and Piotr work on repairing the Blackbird, and Ileana watches and asks if she'll someday be able to turn into steel like her big brother. And Sean says maybe the professor should examine her before she heads back home to see if she's a mutant. That's when Kurt pops up and says the professor wants to speak to Sean, so Sean goes looking for him, and he finds this nice young lady instead. She tells them that her name is Teresa Rourke, and that she is his daughter. Sean is over the moon. Apparently, she met the team when they helped Spider-Woman defeat Sean's cousin, Black Tom Cassidy, in Spider-Woman issue number 37. So they arranged a reunion, and Spider-Woman came too. Everyone's happy except for Moira. She feels threatened by Teresa because she just reminds Moira that she can't give Sean any children. After what happened with her son Proteus turning out to be a mutant monster, she's never having kids again. In a lower Manhattan side street, Caliban climbs out of a manhole cover. He senses other mutants in the building nearby, and he's so lonely, he's gonna go make them be his friends. Inside that building are Storm and Kitty and Stevie Hunter and Jessica Drew, aka Spider-Woman. Dazzler invited them out to see her performance tonight. Kitty is excited to ask Jessica Drew all about her job as a private investigator. What kind of cases do you investigate? Do you carry a gun? Aurora and Stevie sweetly calm her down and let her know that she's bordering on being a bit rude, and Kitty takes a note from her two adult role models. Downstairs, the guards are terrified, because Caliban is at the door. He isn't trying to scare them, but humans always react to him with violence. He absorbs their fear, and it causes him pain, and he reflexively blasts it back at them. Upstairs, Jessica Drew says she thinks she heard gunshots, but no one else heard. Kitty says they're introducing Dazzler, and Allison Blair hits the stage, and a fantastic light show surrounds her as she turns the sound into dazzling light. At the same time, Caliban emerges from the elevator looking for the mutants. Aurora and Jessica hear the crowd around him scream, and Kitty decides to handle it herself. She ducks under the table and changes clothes into the X-Man Sprite, and then she phases through the floor and makes her way to the elevator shaft. She walks on air molecules and thinks Aurora would be so proud of me. Aurora was pissed. Why would she take off on her own like that? Dazzler notices the commotion, and she creates a distraction of a light show so Storm and Jessica can change into their hero outfits. Kitty is face to face with Caliban, and she realizes she should not have faced this guy alone. Storm and Spider-Woman get there, and they're like, leave Sprite alone! And Caliban's like, why are you attacking me? Caliban attacks back, throwing a table at Storm. Spider-Woman goes in for the punches, and he punches her out of the building and takes off down the elevator shaft with Sprite. Dazzler sees that she's losing the crowd, they're getting frantic, and she needs to calm them down. So she uses her powers to set a calming mood for the crowd, and it works, which she's never done before. Normally she uses her powers to hype people up. Storm flies down the elevator shaft, but she's feeling claustrophobic, and Spider-Woman checks in with Stevie Hunter. Where's Caliban? He went down the elevator shaft. Storm went after him. Spider-Woman decides she'll have better luck meeting him outside if she flies down the building and spots Caliban running outside with Sprite. She attacks him and he drops Kitty. She attacks again and he says, "We're the same, why would you attack me?" And she's like, "How are we the same? You're kidnapping a child." He says, "I just want someone to love." Then he's struck by lightning, which is obviously Storm. Kitty wakes up from having fainted, and Caliban's like, "Are you gonna kill me?" And they're like, "No, we don't want that. You're a mutant, right? That's what you meant by we're the same?" And he explains how alone he's been, living in the sewers, and when he sensed them, he wanted to be with them. So now they're on his side, and they hear sirens and plan to sneak away with Caliban, but he's already snuck away himself. So they go back to the party, and they feel bad for Caliban, especially Kitty, because she's been shitty to Nightcrawler since the day she met him based solely on his appearance, and she realizes now that she's been wrong. Back in the Bermuda Triangle, Scott and Lee are starving, sitting on this futuristic island, hoping that a plane might fly by and spot them. Then a familiar voice speaks to them, and Scott is like, "Oh no, he cannot find out who I am." Lee says, "Man, are we glad to see you." Magneto says, "Welcome to my new home. I thought I was alone here, but I'll make your stay as pleasant as possible."
If you watched this far into the video, you should probably just subscribe to my Patreon. I don't typically upload videos this long on TikTok, but I do typically do that on Patreon. Patreon always gets the extended edition of what I post here on TikTok. So if you want more long-form content with a deeper, more detailed view of what's happening in these comics, you should go subscribe to the Patreon. Anyway, thanks for watching.